Welcome back to Trading the Market. Today we're talking collateral form for horse racing. Every horse in a race has a story, but most punters only ever read that story in isolation. This horse won last time, that horse finished third. What almost nobody does is read the stories together. That's what collateral form does, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how it works, why bookmakers have quietly used a version of this thinking for decades, and how to read every single screen of the tools on the site, the overall edges, the scatter chart, and the edge network map. Let's start off with what is collateral form, the plain English definition, because the phrase collateral form sounds more complicated than it actually is. Collateral form is simply this: judging two horses that haven't raced against each other by looking at horses they've both raced against. Think about it like this: imagine you've never watched horse A or horse B run, but you know how horse A beat horse C by 2 lengths last month, and you know horse C beat horse B by 3 lengths the month before that. You didn't need to see A and B in the same race to form an opinion about who is better. You built a bridge between them using horse C. That bridge is collateral. It's collateral in the same sense as a loan, something used as security to back up a claim you can't provide directly. You're using a shared result as security for a judgment about two horses that have never met. On the site, this is exactly what collateral form tab does automatically across the entire field. Look at the panel at the top. Total links 16. That's 16 separate form connections found between horses in this race. Highest edge is 34.41. The single strongest form link in the field. The lowest edge is 1.47. The weakest, most marginal link. Best pair is Moonlit Cloud and Marinarchus, the two horses with the strongest overall collateral relationship. Every one of those numbers is generated automatically by scanning the recent racing history of every horse in the field and finding where their paths have crossed directly or indirectly. That's the what. Now let's talk about the why. This is the part people skip, and the most important part, so stay with me. Why does collateral form work? Horse racing form is relative, not absolute. A horse that wins by 5 lengths in a slowly run race carrying bottom weight has not necessarily proven more than a horse that's beaten a length in a truly run race carrying top weight. Raw results, win, place and distance beaten means almost nothing without context, and the single richest source of context in racing is shared opponents. Here's the logic in 3 steps. Step 1, transitivity. If horse A clearly superior to horse C and horse C is clearly superior to horse B, then the vast majority of cases A is superior to B. It's not a guarantee, racing has upsets, but it's genuinely strongly statistical signal. This is the same logic that underpins chess rating systems, sports power rankings and search engine algorithms. Wherever you have a network of head-to-head results, you can infer relationships between nodes that never directly connected. Step 2, it removes single run noise. Any one race can be misleading. A horse might have hated the ground, got trapped wide, missed the break or simply run a bad race. If you're only looking at one race, you have no way of knowing if that was a true form or a false one. But when you link a horse's results to several other horses across several runs, one bad results get diluted rather than dominating the picture. The system is naturally more resistant to being fooled by a single fluke performance. Step 3, it standardises the picture across a whole field. In a normal 9 or 10 runner race, you might have horses that ran last time at 4 completely different tracks over 3 different distances on different goings in different class races. On the surface, none of it compares. Collateral form finds the threads that do connect them and expresses the difference in one single number, an edge, so you can compare horses that on paper look totally unrelated. The last point is why this tool exists. Lest to do this by hand, you'd need to cross-reference every horse, last 4 or 5 runs against every other horse, last 4 or 5 runs, check the opponents that overlap, then manually work out the form difference, adjusting for weight, distance beaten and class. That's hours of work on one race. This tool does that in the time it takes for the page to load. So how do bookmakers use it? This isn't some fringe cult method. Collateral form is the bread and butter analyst for professional odds makers, and it always has been. When a bookmaker's trading team builds a price for a race, they're not starting from scratch on every runner. They're constantly asking the same questions this tool asks. Where has this horse form crossed with another horse's form, and what does that tell us? A few ways this shows up in practice. Compiling opening prices before a race, traders build a form picture partially from ratings, but ratings themselves are built and adjusted using collateral lines. Horse A's rating gets nudged up or down based on how the horse it beats sequentially performed. In running and market movers, when a previous unheralded horse suddenly wins impressively, sharp bettors and bookmakers immediately go looking for what was the horse's form links say about the rest of the field in it just beat, and by extension races those beaten horses running next. That's collateral form working forward, not just backwards. Spotting mispriced favourites. If a well-backed favourite has a direct or indirect form link to a rival that suggests it isn't as superior as the market suggests, professional bettors will lean on that gap. This is one of the most common ways of finding value against a short price favourite, not by guessing it'll lose, but by having actual data showing another horse in the race matches up better than this price suggests. The point is this: when you use this tool, you're not doing something unusual or gimmicky. You're doing systematically and instantly what professional form students and bookmaker trading desks do by hand, using far more data than any one person could hold in their head. It's important to know there are two different types of collateral form at work here. Looking at the legend at the top of the Edge network view, a thin line shows indirect meetups, a thick line shows direct meetups. This is the single most important thing to understand about this tool, so let's break it down into both types. Direct link. A direct link is a simple case. Two horses in today's race have actually run against each other before in the same race at the same time. You don't need a bridge, they've already met. When that happens, the tool compares how they finish relative to each other in that race, adjusts for factors like weight carried and distance beaten, and produces a single edge number. Indirect link. An indirect link is the clever part. Two horses in today's race have never met, but they've each run a race against a common third horse in a separate race. This is exactly what we can see in the tooltip example from the scatter chart. Look at the pairing of Mr. Daydream versus Moonlit Cloud with an edge of 1.47. That's actually the lowest edge in the whole of the field, so it's a great example of a marginal low confidence link. The tooltip tells us exactly how this link was built via 70. Neither Mr. Daydream or Moonlit Cloud ran against each other. Instead, Mr. Daydream ran against 70 on the 15th of June 2026 in the 8:30 at Windsor on good to firm ground 21 days ago relative to today's race. Moonlit Cloud ran against 70 on the 4th of May 2026 in the 17:53 at Windsor on good to firm ground 63 days ago relative to today's race. Because both horses have a result against the same third horse, 70, the tool can build a bridge between them. It looks at how each of them perform relative to 70 and calculates the implied gap between Mr. Daydream and Moonlit Cloud, even though they've never been in the same race together. This is why the edge is only 1.47 rather than something bigger. The more distant and diluted the link is, the less certain the tool is about it. A link built through one shared horse at different times is naturally weaker than a signal that is a genuine head-to-head. The tool is essentially telling you there's something here, but treat it as a mild lean, not a strong conclusion. Compare that to the strongest link in the field, Moonlit Cloud versus Marinakis, the edge of 34.41. That's the best pair flagged at the top of the page. A number that large, especially if it comes from a direct meeting or several consistent indirect links pointing the same way, is a genuine strong form signal. In this case, it comes from an indirect meeting, and we can see that this is by the fact it has a thin line between them on the network edge map. Why distinction matters when you're reading this tool. When you're scanning the edge network map, don't just look at the size of the number, glance at whether the connecting line is thick direct or thin indirect, and check the arrow direction. A big edge built on a genuine head-to-head carries more weight than the same size edge built through a long chain of indirect connections. The tool gives you both the number and the type of evidence behind it. Use both. The colour of the line matters a lot also. This quickly shows you who the edge belongs to. In our example, Mr. Daydream has a line to Moonlit Cloud. This shows that the edges of 1.47 belongs to Mr. Daydream. Moonlit Cloud might have a bigger overall edge number over Mr. Daydream, but Mr. Daydream has been a better network connection over Moonlit Cloud. The size of the circle is important. It shows the size of the overall edge. The further the number is away from zero, the bigger the circle is. What is the formula looking at? So what's actually going into the single edge number? When the tool compares two horses, whether directly or via a bridge horse, it's not just looking at who finished in front. A few lengths in front means very little on its own. Here's what genuinely matters and what you should be thinking about every time you see an edge number. 1. The distance beaten. Converted to a standard scale, 2 lengths beaten at a sprint distance is a very different result to 2 lengths beaten over further ground. The formula doesn't just take the raw finishing distance, it standardises it to one that is beaten lengths means the same thing regardless of what the distance the underlying race was run over. Number 2, weight carried. If horse A beat horse B while carrying more weight, that's materialistic stronger form result than if it carried equal weight. Weight adjusted form is one of the oldest and most reliable tools in the whole sport and is backed into every edge calculation here. 3. The going the race was run on. You'll notice both races in our example were run on good to firm. That's not a coincidence the tool ignores. Ground conditions change how meaningful a form line is and how transferable it is to today's race conditions. A big form edge built entirely on soft ground tells you less about how a horse's chance on a quick ground today. Number 4, how recent the race was. Notice the tooltip literally tells you the gap in days. 21 days ago, 63 days ago. Recency matters because horses change. A horse can improve, decline, get injured, or simply have had a season since that form was recorded. The further back a race sits, the less certain the tool treats the link as being. Number 5, it looks if the race was run over flats or jumps. Some horses never cross between the two, but others will. It's important that we treat the two types of races very differently. 6. The strength and directness of the chain. For indirect links, as we've already covered, a direct meeting is stronger evidence than an indirect one. And an indirect link built through a horse that itself has strong, consistent form is more trustworthy than one built through an unreliable bridge horse. Put all that together and the single number you see, plus 6.55 minus 16.46, whatever it is really a compressed summary of the distance beaten adjusted for weight, adjusted for going, adjusted for race type, adjusted for how long ago it happened and how solid the connecting evidence actually is. That's why you shouldn't just eyeball a raw number and stop there. A big edge from a recent direct weight adjusted meeting on similar ground is about as reliable as the kind of analysis gets. A big edge from an old indirect link through a moderate bridge horse deserves more skepticism. Let's have a look at the visuals for a race. Overall edge, this is where I start. Every horse has been condensed into a single collateral edge score. Green tells us that the horse has come out ahead of the field overall, while red suggests the opposite. Immediately one horse jumps off the screen, Eternal Angel. A massive 68.82 plus puts him comfortably clear of the rest of the field. That's not just the highest rating, it's nearly 40 points clear of the second best horse, Amharic, on 27.85. Whenever you see that kind of gap, you want to understand whether it's backed up elsewhere or whether it's simply one huge piece of form pulling the rating upwards. Further down, things become much less convincing. Archon sits only slightly negative, suggesting he's competitive but hasn't quite built enough positive collateral evidence. Then we arrive at the horses I'd be questioning. Mystic Wind at minus 14.53 and Rose Warrior at minus 8.95. But the real concern is Dancing on Diamonds sitting at minus 53.42. Only Happy Harrison rates worse. When you see a figure that negative, it tells you the collateral evidence has consistently worked against that horse throughout the network. All this doesn't predict the winner on its own, but it immediately tells me where I would want to investigate next. Direct and indirect meetups. Now we can see exactly where the numbers come from. Starting with the direct meetups, there are only 2. Archon beat Mystic Wind by an edge of 25.52. Then Mystic Wind comfortably beat Dancing on Diamonds by 52.66. That's important because the direct form is the strongest evidence you can have. These horses have actually raced one another. Already Dancing on Diamonds has one significant negative against its name. Now let's move on into indirect comparisons. This is where Eternal Angel really starts to dominate. Through Palm Springs, Eternal Angel owns a 54-point edge over Archon. Using that very simple bridge horse, that increases to 83.75 over Mystic Wind, the biggest edge anywhere in this race. Then completely independently through Ladies' Day, Eternal Angel also holds a 64-point advantage over Happy Harrison. Notice what's happening? Different bridge horses, different races, same conclusion. Whenever collateral form reaches the same answer from multiple independent routes, confidence naturally increases. Now compare that with Dancing on Diamonds. The strongest collateral relationship involving him is actually Amharic, beating him over 54 points through Just Call Me Buzz. So whether you're looking at direct meetups or indirect ones, the evidence keeps flowing in the same direction. Nothing here suggests dancing on diamonds has built a strong collateral case. Moving to the scatter chart, now let's break through the overall numbers apart. Instead of seeing one score for each horse, every dot represents one individual collateral relationship. Look at Eternal Angel. Every single dot sits well in the positive territory. That's exactly what you want to see. The overall score isn't relying on freakishly large edges, it's supported by several independent pieces of evidence, all pointing in the same direction. That's a really healthy profile. Now compare that with Dancing on Diamonds. Every dot is sitting on a negative side of the zero line. There's nothing balancing those negatives out. That tells me the overall rating isn't being dragged down by one bad race. It's consistently losing collateral comparisons wherever the data connects it. Mystic Wind is another interesting example. He's scattered all over the place. One comparison puts him strongly positive while others leave him heavily negative. That tells us Mystic Wind is so much harder to assess. Depending on which horse you're comparing him with, you get very different answers. And finally, let's have a look at the Edge Network. This is probably my favourite visual. The Edge Network lets us see how the entire race fits together. Every horse is a node and every line is a collateral relationship. The arrow points away from the horse it favours by that piece of form. Straight away we can see that Eternal Angel sitting in the centre of the strongest relationships. Several lines are in his colour and there's not a small edge either. Those are some of the biggest numbers anywhere on the graph. What I like is Eternal Angel isn't relying on one lucky connection, multiple routes through the network all keep ending in the same horse. Now look at Dancing with Diamonds. The picture is very different. Instead of accumulating positive relationships, the network shows the form genuinely flowing away from him. He's losing key comparisons rather than winning them, and there aren't many routes pulling him back into contention. This is exactly why I like looking at the network last. The overall edge tells me who the data likes, the scatter chart tells me how reliable that rating is, and the meetups show me the evidence. And the network lets me stand back and see whether the entire picture makes logical sense. In this race, all four visuals tell broadly the same story. The collateral evidence is overwhelming positive for Eternal Angel, while Dancing with Diamonds struggles to find many positive relationships anywhere in the network. So how to use the tool in trading? Let's bring it all together in a practical process. Step 1, start on overall edges. Get your first impression of who the data favours and who it doesn't. Step 2, check the best pair box and the highest edge box at the top. These are flagging the single strongest relationships the system found. That's often your most reliable piece of information in the whole race. Step 3, go to a scatter chart for any horses whose overall edge surprise you, positively or negatively. Check whether the edge is built on a consistent run of similar dots or one outlier dragging the average. Step 4, open the edge network. Look at the clusters. Ask yourself, does this horse I'm interested in sit inside a tightly connected group, or is it isolated with only one or two thin indirect lines to lean on? A horse near the edge of the network with only one weak indirect links is a horse that the tool generally knows less about. Treat any edge number there with more caution. Step 5, cross-check the direct versus indirect. A strong positive edge built on a genuine head-to-head meeting is worth more than the same size edge inferred through a bridge horse 3 weeks apart on a different ground. Step 6, combine it with other tabs such as going, distance, the SIQR, 12 ticks. The collateral form tells you how horses compare to each other. It doesn't replace understanding whether today's conditions suit them. A horse with a brilliant collateral edge that has never handled soft ground is still at risk if the forecast turns wet. Mistakes to avoid. Before we wrap up, there's a few warnings. Don't treat every edge number as equally reliable. A 34-point edge from a strong direct meeting is not the same as class as evidence as a 34-point edge inferred from 2 indirect links. Always glance at how the number was built before trusting it. Don't ignore isolated horses. If a horse has few or no links on the edge network, that's not necessarily bad news from that horse. It just means the tool has less to tell you about it. Don't read no data is no chance. Don't forget recency. An indirect link built on a race from 10 weeks ago is working with older information than one built last week. Always check the day gap. Don't use collateral form in isolation. It's an outstanding tool for comparing ability levels between beaten horses. It says very little on its own about suitability to today's specific conditions unless you cross-reference it with the going and distance data. That's collateral form, but fully unpacked, what it is, why the underlying logic actually holds up, how professional bookmakers use the same thinking to build their prices, the real difference between direct and indirect links, and exactly what bait into a single edge number every time you see it. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll get an answer back to you. Please consider subscribing and adding a like to the video. It helps move the video in front of the dross that you see on YouTube. There is nothing left to be said except I've been Mark, this has been Collateral Form. Until next time, we're all trading the market. Happy trading.